We are looking at the model of the eye. You have two different models here. So how are we going to do this? Okay, the eye has different layers, different chambers, and different structures and different muscles. So we are going to look at them one by one. The three layers, it's going to be different in both the models, so we'll look at both the models. So here we have the outermost layer, the whitish layer that you can see in your eye when you look in the mirror. That's your sclera, all this. Then if you open this up, you can see the colored layer, which we call the choroid. And the third layer, the innermost layer, is what you see inside, the pinkish or reddish layer. That's your retina. Okay, so let's look at the other model. So here you can see they have cut open a section of the eye, so you can see the three layers: 1, 2, 3, sclera, choroid, and retina. Also, if you open up, you can see the retina inside on the top and the bottom half of this model. Okay, so those are the three layers: sclera, outermost; the middle layer is the choroid, the colored layer; the innermost layer is your retina. Now let's see what are the other structures. So let's look at both the models. So if you see here, the sclera comes in the front and it forms a structure. They call it the cornea. Cornea, this is convex, meaning it's curved more towards the outside. On the one side it's curved outside. They call it convex, this structure. So we call this part cornea. Okay, so here you can see the cornea on this model. So next, if you see the choroid comes in the front and forms your colored layer, a ring-like structure. They call it the iris. The tiny lines represent the iris muscles, which help to open and close, meaning constrict and dilate this hole. We call this hole the pupil. So in this model, if I can remove the cornea, then you can see the iris with the pupil. Okay. Then behind the iris, you can see the lens here in this model, and here you can see the lens inside. It's behind my iris. That's your lens, and this lens is suspended from the eye. You can see this brown area and these lines representing the ciliary muscle. These are the suspensory ligaments. So the eye is hanging from the suspensory ligaments, and then the eye lens can be stretched when needed. So if you see here, you can see the lens with the suspensory ligaments attaching to the ciliary body or the ciliary muscle. You can see the brown, dark brown layer. So your eye lens attaches like this to the ciliary body, which helps to stretch the lens. Okay, and then if you see here, let me put the lens back. And this one, okay. So if you see, there's a little space between the cornea and the iris. They call it the anterior chamber. And between the lens and the iris, that's your posterior chamber. So your aqueous humor, or the watery fluid, is produced. It comes from the top of the lens, washes the lens, fills the posterior chamber, comes into the anterior chamber through the pupil, and it gets removed or drained. And the vitreous chamber on the posterior end of the eye is filled with the vitreous humor, which gives a shape to the eye, and also it holds the retina in place. Okay, so let's remove that. Now you can see the details of the retina. So you can see the point where the optic nerve comes in, and it is surrounded by a tube-like structure. You can see it better outside. That's your optic nerve, and this is your optic disc that encloses the nerve. But if you look a little bit away from the optic nerve, you can see this circular area with a little depression or a pit, like a tiny dot in the middle of the big circle. So this whole area is called macula lutea. where you have high concentration of rods and cones that help you to see the cells that help with vision, and right in the middle the tiny dot or the depression, that's your fovea centralis. So that's the central focal point where you get the clearest vision. So your nerve endings go there, they convert the light signals into electric signals and pass it to the brain for it to process.